All right, glad you're with us, and I know how many of you are feeling. I feel the same way that you do. You should feel that way. It is what is happening in this country now is it is so lacking in fundamental truth, such a despicable, repugnant, repulsive double standard. And it is such a nothing. And yet there is another case where the very thing they're accusing the president of, they themselves are guilty of. You know, we play in that quote of Nancy Pelosi, using taxpayer dollars to shake down another country for personal gain. Exactly what Joe Biden's on tape admitting that he was doing. No, why would any vice president of the United States of America ever demand a prosecutor get fired, or I'm taking my $1 billion and then brag about it? And son of a B. And they did it. Look, you know, I spent a lot of time this weekend. I don't watch these stupid Sunday shows anymore. I do get transcripts of them, and I glance at them. I read them. I just, it is so abusively biased. It is so one-sided. There's zero intellectual honesty, zero. And, you know, the only thing I'm sitting there thinking, well, they've got to know that they're lying. They got to know that they're misrepresenting the truth. They got to know that they've got a political agenda, or maybe they're blind to it, which would probably be worse, because that means they're sicker than I even thought. Here's what I've concluded, though. This is an all hands on deck moment for this country. The 2020 election is going to be a tipping point election. It is going to have deep, wide, profound, long-lasting ramifications if America makes the wrong decision. You know, if you love this country, and I know you all do, if you believe in the rule of law, if you believe in constitutional order, and our great system, the capitalist system that has literally transformed life around the globe, where we don't abuse power to the extent that, you know, all these other countries, you know, with territorial or geopolitical ambitions, that's never been the United States. We're not a perfect country. The left reminds us of that every second of every day. But we are a country that has done an enormous amount of good and lifted more people out of poverty and has created a system where, you know, everybody has an opportunity to bring their talents to fruition. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness is real. We have never witnessed what's happening now before our eyes. By the way, does anybody even care remotely that the president of the United States of America is being spied on repeatedly? You know, tell me the other presidents, the incidents of other presidents of the United States whose phone calls with foreign leaders or even transcripts are being leaked repeatedly. The Australian prime minister, for one, the Mexico president for another, now the Ukrainian president, now the left is demand. They want to see every single transcript of every call, every conversation Donald Trump ever had with any foreign leader. Okay, we're going to now go back in time, and can we get those conversations with Obama when he finally got a little more flexibility and he got re-election? I'd like to hear those conversations. What was he telegraphing to Medvedev to tell Vladimir? I'll have more flexibility after the election. How many times did Joe Biden speak to leaders in Ukraine as surrounding this incident? How many other conversations? Can we hear the mullahs in Iran? I really want to hear that one. Or the leaders in Iran and what Obama was promising, besides bribing them with $150 billion. What did we get? Nothing out of the deal. We're dealing in an environment which makes it particularly difficult, where the press just lies. The mob lies. They do this now with regularity. They are in complete, they're in the pocket completely of the Democratic party. There is an unholy alliance here. And they want this man out of office, and they don't care how they get it done. There is a clear and present danger to this system of governance that has done so much good for so many, not just here, but around the world. You know, he has so shaken them in the swamp and the sewer. He has been so disruptive to the way they do things that to them, he has to go. And they're not going to waste, another 3 years and get another special prosecutor involved only to be disappointed again. No, they're going the fast track. And I'm like, go for it. Let's call the roll and let every Democrat in the House vote for this. Go right ahead. Vote for the inquiry. Then have your inquiry, your next witch hunt. Because this witch hunt is nuttier than the last witch hunt, where there was no evidence. The great irony in all of this is they have no problem. I never understood why they had no problem when Hillary Clinton literally rigged a primary against Bernie Sanders. I'm probably more angry about it than Bernie, because it reflects on the country's ability to have peaceful transitions of power. And then, of course, the rigged investigation. It's a slam dunk espionage, multiple felony offenses of Hillary Clinton. Slam dunk. It's a slam dunk obstruction of justice case. They cared so much about possible Russian interference in the 2016 election. They cared so much about it, they dragged the country through 2.5 years of this crap, when we now have 4 separate investigations that show no Trump-Russia collusion, no obstruction. But didn't matter to them that Hillary Clinton paid for a Russian dossier. The one that was likely Russian disinformation from the start, as the New York Times now tells us. Oh, that would mean that probably the highest levels of the Russian government knew that they were giving dirt on Donald Trump to help Hillary and create chaos. Everyone said that was the whole premise here. But they only cared about it if it was Trump. Just like if obstruction doesn't matter unless it's Trump. Cheating in elections doesn't matter as long as it's an allegation against Trump. It's Hillary can do what she wants. But, having bought and paid Russian lies to help cheat and win that election, that's fine. And this is where we now find ourselves as a country. This is really scary stuff. By the way, Lindsey Graham calling for a special prosecutor to investigate Joe Biden. I want to know a few things in this. How did the deep state do it again? How is a CIA guy involved in this? Everyone's like, oh, the whistleblower is going to testify. The whistleblower is meaningless to the facts of the case when you got the transcript of the actual call that didn't live up to what they were selling us when Nancy Pelosi announced the day before the impeachment inquiry without even having seen it. It didn't matter what was in there. Didn't matter if there was a quid pro quo, and there's not a quid pro quo. I will tell you, I really believe this is a massive miscalculation on the part of the media and Democrats, and this too will boomerang back on them. And, Biden can say all he wants and go out there all he wants and says, this has all been debunked. No, it hasn't. Nothing has been debunked. Fact, we know his son made millions from the company that was being investigated by the prosecutor that Joe Biden demanded be fired in 6 hours, or he's taking his $6 billion home. We know that. And we have the whole China issue. And if I'm Joe and Hunter Biden, I wouldn't be so happy about all of this today. Now the Democrats, they don't care about national security to the point they want access to all of Trump's phone calls. There was nothing here. Geraldo, of all people, just now, this poor president, his entire tenure in office defined by snitches and rats and backstabbers. They'll get you 6 ways, but Sunday, that was one thing that Chucky Schumer actually got right. Oh, now I love this in the United States of America, where we do celebrate freedom of speech. Biden seeks to bar Rudy Giuliani from any television news programs after Rudy talks about Biden's obvious, provable corruption. Because I don't care what you have to say. It is clear no vice president would ever demand a Ukrainian prosecutor be fired unless there wasn't a real significant issue involved. And by the way, leverage all of the resources of $1 billion that we had already identified for this particular cause. Yeah, that would be. It's pretty bad. And I think that, the Biden campaign demanding that the network silence Giuliani. I mean, that's cracking me up. If it wasn't so serious, what, silence any conservative? Go back to the document. Go back to the transcription. Zelensky, the new president of Ukraine, thanking the president for doing that which Merkel and Macron wouldn't do. And they're not doing enough for the safety and security, just like they weren't paying enough for NATO, which is, their problem more because of Putin than anybody else. And thanking the president, effusive thanks when the president in his support of the defense of Ukraine and, we're ready to continue to cooperate. Next steps, talks about, we're ready to buy, more defense products from you. That's all he said. That's what the president does say. I would like a favor because our country has been through a lot and Ukraine knows a lot about it. I would like you to find out what actually happened with the whole situation in Ukraine. Now, a president of the United States has certain constitutional responsibilities now, doesn't he? He's the commander in chief. Also, a constitutional responsibility as president to faithfully execute the laws of the United States. We have cared about interference of foreign countries all these 3 years, but they don't care about it if it's Trump saying, I'd like you to get to the bottom of it and find out what happened. Now, I go back to Politico, 1/11/2017. Well, in that, Ukrainian efforts to sabotage Trump backfire. Kiev officials are scrambling to make amends with the president-elect after quietly working to boost Hillary. Ukrainians admitting, even the mob picked up on this, that they tried to help, quote, in the piece, Ukrainian government officials tried to help Hillary Clinton and undermine Donald Trump by publicly questioning his fitness for office. They also disseminated documents implicating a top Trump aide in corruption and suggested they were investigating the matter only to back away after the election. They helped Clinton's allies research damaging information on Trump and his advisors. A Politico investigation found a Ukrainian American operative who was consulting for the DNC met with top officials in the Ukrainian embassy in D.C. in an effort to expose ties between Trump, top campaign ad Paul Manafort, and Russia. According to people with direct knowledge of the situation, Ukrainian efforts had an impact in the race, helping to force Manafort's resignation and advancing the narrative that Trump's campaign was deeply connected to Ukraine's foe to the east, Russia. And it goes on from there. It's a 30-minute piece. It takes to read this thing and really absorb it and understand it the way you need to. If we cared, we got to stop allowing people to be spying on our president. We've got to stop this madness. This is not safe for anybody. How can any president fulfill his constitutional duty? President was faithfully executing, doing what I would think Democrats wanted, getting to the bottom of 2016 election interference by a foreign country. So Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, says he wasn't pushed by Donald Trump. He said the president didn't discuss the aid on the call. There was no pressure. It was you read it. It's a friendly conversation, free flowing, no agenda, stream of consciousness. Yeah. And the president did say, look, you guys are right in the middle of all of this by your own admission. And he can now quote the quote Politico and their investigation 111-17, and they realize, we backed Hillary Clinton. You could do all the, now we're finding out the whistleblower. We've got to protect the whistleblower's identity. Okay, well, why is this whistleblower more important than the actual transcript? Except for the fact, where did the whistleblower get the leak from? Because the leaking has to stop. The spying on a president of the United States, it's got to stop. And it's not just for Republican presidents. It would be for Democrats, too, because they can't govern. Now, we'll get into this with Sean Davis, co-founder of The Federalist. Looks like they added a box, according to all these reports, about, I've heard it from others. I know about the information I am disclosing here, and I have direct personal knowledge. I heard about it from others. August 2019, they're changing it. That sounds a little odd. Let's find out the truth about that, and we will check on the whistleblowers raising money. You know who's raising all the money, though? Donald Trump. The American people are disgusted by literally this unbridled personal attack and hatred. All right, glad you're with us. 800-941-SHAWN. By the way, congrats to our good friend Scott Shannon, just killing it and doing the mornings here in New York City. Number one, there is apparently a documentary being made. I don't know if, Linda, you know about this, about Scott last to first, where he literally took a radio station. This never happens. He was kind of like the founder of Morning Zoo Radio.
I do not know about this.
Z100, which is a very popular music station in New York. Anyway, so he took that station from last to first place in one rating book. That is like an impossibility. That doesn't happen.
Listen, anybody who talks to Scott for the first time, I'm telling you right now, first time I met him at PLJ, and I was an intern. Mm-hmm. And I walk up to him, and I'm, being shown around. I don't know nothing. And
Hannity.
And he comes. I didn't even. I wasn't working for you yet. Nothing. And I walk over to him like, "How you doing, sir?" And he starts talking to me. I go, "Oh my God!" And he goes, "What? What?" I said, "You actually talk like that." And he goes, "And you talk like that?" I said, "You just assume like some part of it is just on the air. You know what I mean?" But it was full on, man.
No, look, I love him to this day. I mean, Hannity, Shannon. I didn't know that guest's name. Why didn't you reintroduce him? I didn't know who it was. I need to know who it was when I'm listening to your show. I mean, he holds nothing back. And listen, 99% of the time he's right. He actually does the drops for the show early, first thing in the morning when he wakes up, because his voice is it has that morning voice deepness to it.
Got the grogginess. I get the emails from him at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
He does as soon as he wakes up. Hannity, Sean Hannity is on. I mean,
you sound like Rush Limbaugh.
No, I can do Rush. Sean.
That
Hannity.
Was Rush.
No, this is Rush. Sean Hannity. How's that? No.
Yeah, it's the exact same as what you just did.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
And here I can do who can't do the great? I'll say it. Nobody else will say it. There. I said
that's actually very good.
Then
your Bob Grant is very good.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is sick. It's getting sicker.
God bless him.
No, by the way, it's getting sicker than it's ever been. What else do I do? Oh, you like my Marlon Brando guy? Oh,
your Marlon Brando is the best one you got.
It hurts my voice to do this one for some reason. It just hurts. I made him an offer. I did not want this life for Michael. Sonny, he's a hothead. Yeah, I wanted a life I did want a better life for Michael. I will agree to the peace we've made today. But if something unforeseen should ever happen to my son, a terrible accident, I'll
tell you, listen, I think that there's going to be a lot of doors opening for you because we can't use De Niro anymore. He's lost his mind. So maybe you could take all those roles.
F him.
He's an embarrassment. He's an embarrassment to himself. He's ridiculous.
All right, let's get back to saving the country. All right, there is a treaty between the U.S. and Ukraine, a cooperation agreement for prosecuting crimes. How is it that they claim they cared about election interference? Ukraine is admitting it, dramatic levels of interference that impacted the race. And the president is saying, can we get to the bottom of it? Because it's good for our country to know Although it was always a crock. They never cared about election interference. They only cared about Trump election interference. Obama, had his team trying to defeat Prime Minister Netanyahu in an election, our ally. That's how deeply involved he was. Even tax dollars, State Department dollars spent on the endeavor. They didn't care about that. They didn't care about the Russian dirty dossier. And they got their that was then used to bludgeon President Trump and spy on him. And then they spied on him through contacts with Europe. And then they abused the intelligence tools we give the intel community. Well, it looks like it's been used again. And that shouldn't surprise anybody. Anyone even care that the president, foreign minister, Ukraine saying, no, we were not pushed by the president on any of these issues at all. And they had a cordial, friendly call. Not every word was prepared, but the president does have a constitutional duty, to faithfully execute the laws of this country. Now, I guess in this day and age where the Democratic Party, laws don't matter to them. Levin nailed it a long time ago. It's a post-constitutional America. They are perfectly fine aiding and abetting law breaking and literally helping people break laws because they don't like the immigration laws in the country. So they just do what they want. And even though ICE wants to legally deport people, they won't cooperate. At what point do they become culpable for what they do? At what point we have letters of Democratic senators. We have an admission of Chris Murphy. Then you got Leahy. Then you got Durbin. Then you got Menendez. Yeah, basically, we're going to withhold aid to you. We're not going to give you the aid money unless you keep open the Trump-Russia collusion investigation and help us. OK, the very thing they're accusing Trump of. It's the same with the Russia witch hunt, the Ukrainian witch hunt. What they accuse Trump of, they themselves are guilty as hell about. But the media just hear no, see no, evil, period, and this unholy alliance. They are the great protectors. The role that the intel community played in all this, we better get to the bottom of it. Because we're never going to be able to, there will be no president that can function and do his job if they get away with this. Liz Cheney called out Pelosi in a tweet saying Ukraine, this whole issue involving the president, starting to seem like a political setup. She cited Pelosi's interview at 60 Minutes. And then she's acting like on these calls, we must be prayerful. We must, do this with a sober, not anything we want to do. It's a crock. Anyway, the speaker said she talked to Trump about the contents of the phone call with the Ukrainian president before it was released. This is starting to seem like a political setup. So, Madam Speaker, what did you know and when did you know it? The tweet said. He told me it was perfect. By the way, read it. It's perfect. It is a friendly phone call. It is trying to deepen relations. The president trying to get to the heart of what really happened in 2016. Ukraine has admitted, again, go to the Political article from 1/11/2017. They admit all of it, that they helped Hillary Clinton. What is the role of the intelligence community that, this whole issue? And it's really interesting when you read into this and you're beginning to see that the intel community was secretly changing the whistleblower rules. Now, the person that blew that wide open is Sean Davis. He'll join us later in the program today and raising questions about the intel community's role amid the whistleblower complaint submitted against Trump. The whistleblower has nothing to do with it except, OK, who are you? And you didn't hear this yourself. And this is hearsay. And, oh, did they, in fact, change the requirement that whistleblowers have direct knowledge, firsthand knowledge of alleged wrongdoings? Well, that would be a pretty big deal if, in fact, that was needed. And they changed it somewhere between, May of 2018 and August 2019, which required the whistleblowers provide firsthand knowledge. They could have put in a secret. You might want to talk to so-and-so. A lot of ways to do this. But, why change the rules? It's being reported by everybody. We're going to have the guy that broke that open, Michael Goodwin, over at the New York Post, saying Trump is now has to battle CIA spies in this war against him? What president has ever had to release information in the past? Released documented phone calls. Now Democrats, they want every phone call. Well, we've already leaked the Australian prime minister call and the Mexico president call and now the Ukrainian president call. You know, another thing that the Federalist is raising in their questions, did the Inspector General's office help the whistleblower try to frame Trump? And what's interesting is, you know, this plot is now beginning to sort of crumble a little bit that, no, Trump did not offer a quid pro quo. He didn't condition foreign subsidies on Ukraine and on whether or not they would investigate Hunter Biden. And as it relates to Hunter Biden, that's an awful lot of money if you don't have any experience in energy, isn't it? And you don't have any experience in natural gas, and you don't have any experience with Ukraine. We're talking millions of dollars here. And you're going to say that, that now we have the video of Joe Biden saying, I'm taking my $1 billion. You got 6 hours. You fire that prosecutor. Doesn't that seem odd to everybody? Except the mob and the media. They're just running interference for all things Biden. And I'm sure that at the end, they're going to be willing to throw Biden overboard because they don't think he's got it, that he can cut it against Donald Trump. Fine. Now they want this power. For what? So they can pass the new Green Deal, so they can put activists on the court, so they, $94 trillion and get rid of, that entire sick, maddening plan. And then Medicare for all, no private insurance. And while we're at it, maybe we'll stack the courts with liberal justices that legislate from the bench and those that, will cite foreign law to justify their insane rulings. And let's get rid of the Electoral College while we're at it. Because then any president now will be impeached if this is the standard. And, Pelosi wanting to rush it through so it doesn't interfere with the 2020 elections. She realized last week she couldn't contain the squad and the base of her party any longer. She gave them the green light. They just have been searching anything, but they're not going to let this linger and get a bad result after the next 2.5 years. So we're not going to have a special counsel. We're not going to make that mistake again. And Democrats, they're been under pressure, but they didn't know what they're going to do. And they're using the biggest liar in Congress. Adam Schiff's been telling us forever he has all the evidence on Russia collusion. Well, they never had anything there either. Nothing. I mean, and the hypocrisy from him. He's the guy on tape colluding with Russians, or somebody thinks is a Russian that has dirt on Donald Trump. Wow. I thought that was bad if you sought information from Russians about your opponent. Wasn't that what the Trump Tower meeting was all about? Or how about the former UN ambassador, Samantha Powers? 300 unmaskings in her name alone? And she's saying this week that Trump was blatantly extorting Ukraine? The only one that is shaking down Ukraine is Joe Biden. And he's buying the basically firing the prosecutors who's investigating his son. It doesn't get any more corrupt than this. It doesn't get any more twisted and sick, and up is down and down is up. And it's like the media is just in a trance and they can't even discern reality anymore. Even Pelosi now is echoing Ocasio-Cortez. It doesn't matter if impeachment costs Democrats the House. OK, keep doing that. So I would argue they're going to regret this. But I will tell you that this is a clear and present danger between everything that has happened with those that abuse their power as all things related to the Russia investigation. The deep state operatives, the fact that they literally rigged Hillary's investigation. Every other American would go to jail, not Hillary. Obstruction of justice, espionage, everyone else would go to jail. It's supposed to have a verified information to apply for a FISA warrant. It's unverifiable. They did it 4 separate times. Why? To spy on the Trump campaign vis-a-vis by taking away the constitutional rights of Carter Page. They did it 4 separate times. We had 4 investigations. It still didn't turn out the way they wanted. And so all right, let's move on to the next one. We'll find a reason. We'll make one up if we have to. But, we'll ignore what Joe Biden did, just like we'll ignore what Hillary did. You know, you got Tlaib defending impeach the MF shirts that she's selling. Oh, okay. And Pelosi is, I am going to tell you something. If this stands and we don't get justice on the deep state and we don't rein in the spying on presidents and candidates and unleashing the most powerful tools of intelligence on the American people, we don't get to the bottom of this, you could kiss the United States as we know it goodbye. If they get in charge and this ever pans out in any way, then I will tell you, you are going to lose the country you think you know. If you love your country, this is a tipping point moment. This is an all hands on deck moment. I know. Listen, if you want to preserve the rule of law, constitutional governance, and you want to protect against the socialist insane agenda of the left, you better now stay engaged, because this is real. This is a sick, twisted, ugly, corrupt, abusive use of impeachment. We have criminalized differences, and they'll make it up. And they're the ones guilty of that which they say they're so upset about.
We seem to be moving toward a place where impeachment may be inevitable. The dam really seems to be breaking wide open.
This obstruction point is also impossible to look away from, because I think what he was really saying is Congress has a job to do.
They now have the green light, if they want it, from Mueller's statement that the ball is in their court, and now they've got to pick it up and run with it and do the right thing.
The Democratic-controlled Congress will have no choice but to open an impeachment inquiry into President Trump.
Every single day that the president sits in that office, he's obstructing justice, right?
So the train whistle's blowing, and Pelosi's got to make a decision. And I think that's the tough question for her. It's always been, are you willing to say no to impeachment? And I think it's totally up in the air what she's going to do.
I rise today, Mr. Speaker, to call for the impeachment of the President of the United States of America.
Trump would like to redefine the law the way that he wants to redefine it, but he's wrong. And yes, I believe that he should be impeached. So I really do believe that.
We have learned that there is now evidence that the President of the United States engaged in a felony to obtain the office of President. The Constitution could not be any clearer. Impeachment is the appropriate remedy for bribery, for treason, for high crimes and misdemeanors.
When your son looks at you and says, Mama, look, you won. Bullies don't win. And I said, baby, they don't. Because we're going to go in there, we're going to impeach them.
Every single colleague of mine agrees there's impeachable offenses.
Impeach 45. Impeach 45. Impeach 45.
They've been saying all of this from the get-go. I mean, it's insane. We'll have a timeline stamped tonight on television. Where do you see this? They've been saying it from the get-go. I go back. Congressman Al Green, well, we better impeach him because we're not going to be able to beat him in the ballot box.
Congressman, are you concerned that impeachment talk may actually help the president's reelection?
I'm concerned that if we don't impeach this president, he will get reelected. If we don't impeach him, he will say he has been vindicated. He will say the Democrats had an overwhelming majority in the House and they didn't take up impeachment. He will say that we had a constitutional duty to do it if it was there and we didn't. He will say that he has been vindicated.
All right. Joining us now is former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. And by the way, it's 25 years, if you can believe it, since the contract with America. The night that Newt became the Speaker of the House, first time in 40 years, Republicans took power in the House of Representatives. It's hard to believe, isn't it? Anyway, ever since then, it has been transformative. And I would argue that there are three huge conservative movements in our lifetime that have dramatically impacted the country for the better. One would be Reagan's presidency. The second would be the contract with America and Newt's, balancing the budget and even getting Bill Clinton to say the era of big government is over and the end of welfare as we know it. And I would say it's happening now before our eyes, as evidenced by the Trump phenomenon of success. It is now, I guess the Fox News Channel is broadcasting this. I think you're going to do it on Fox Nation on demand, but also on the Fox News channel, correct?
That's right. It's Nation, including a whole lot of extra material, and then the basic programs on Fox channel. But I have to say, what you didn't tell the audience, Sean, is that when that big night occurred, when we made history after 40 years, guess who the guy was right in the center, coordinating the whole evening? It was Sean Hannity.
I was the MC.
You were right there. You were a part of history.
You know, and you were gracious enough to allow me to be a part of it. I'll never forget, we didn't have cable TV news like we do today. I mean, Fox was 2 years away from going on the air. And what's so funny about it is I walk into this room behind where it was a huge celebration. I lost my voice that night. I barely could talk the next day. And I walked in and there's ABC, NBC, CBS, and you're taping interviews. And in I walk. I said, hey, Newt, is it okay? Or I guess, Mr. Speaker, is it okay if you do my radio show tomorrow? The whole room turns around and like, who is this kid? Who is this person? And you were great. You came on the show. It was amazing. And our lives have been, we run very parallel lives the whole time.
Yeah. Look, I would argue that you and Rush were two of the key reasons we finally won. And so, we go back a long way. And I think what's interesting about where we are right this minute, and of course, you lived through our whole impeachment process with Clinton. You saw how different it was from what's going on here.
You balanced the budget, Mr. Speaker. We haven't done it since.
That's right. Well, we had 4 straight years of a balanced budget for the only time in the lifetime of anybody listening to the show. We also reformed welfare, and more people went back to work, and more children left poverty in the 3 years after we reformed welfare than any time in American history. So I'm very proud of what we accomplished. And I think we also proved with the Contract with America that you could run a positive, solutions-oriented campaign offering really big changes, and you could win without having to do the stuff that all too many of our consultants do nowadays. But I also want to point out, and this is part of why I was so glad we had a chance to get together today, I think everybody who is concerned about what's going on should drop the word impeach or impeachment. This is not an impeachment process. This is a coup d'etat. This is a deliberate effort which goes back to election night 2016. Their first trial run was the Russian conspiracy, where it was the FBI who were breaking the law. Their second run now is this totally crazy Ukrainian problem, where it's the intelligence community breaking the law. But the patterns are so similar. I mean, nobody should kid themselves. This has nothing to do with impeachment. It has nothing to do with the rule of law. It has nothing to do with facts. You have Chairman Schiff opening his hearing by reading 2 paragraphs of what he wished Trump had said, which he himself says he made up and knew were lies. You have Speaker Pelosi calling for an impeachment before she met the whistleblower, so-called, and I think fake whistleblower is the right term, and before she read the transcript of the president's speech or phone call with the president of Ukraine. So what you and I are living through right now is the most unconstitutional and anti-American effort to replace the president of the United States with the choice of the left-wing bureaucracy, news media, and Democrats in the Congress. It's extraordinary that it's going on.
You called it a coup and a coup attempt. I have read and I have reread and reread again this transcript for all of the discussion about, well, I want a favor from you. Now, this is after the Ukrainian president is thanking President Trump for doing what the European Union wouldn't do and helping on defense issues. And then he mentioned that, we're about to, place another order. He wasn't asking the president permission. It sounded like it was a done deal. And the president says, yeah, about this whole mess, CrowdStrike, all this. Well, Ukraine is at the epicenter of a lot of this. I keep going back. There is a January 11th, 2017 article in Politico. It's very long, where Ukraine acknowledged that they were involved in election interference in the 2016 election. They acknowledge it. And the president is asking, hey, a lot of this happened with you. And we also knew that, in fact, there were DNC operatives that were trying to get Ukraine to dig dirt. They admit that they did it. They have the evidence that they did it. Now, to me, that's the president faithfully executing the laws of the United States of America and getting to the bottom of what I thought the media cared about, foreign election interference.
No, but the media doesn't care about that. The media cares about destroying Donald Trump. I mean, look, it's amazing to me when you look at this whole story, and I watched it for, when I saw the Sunday morning shows, and I realized that every major news network was totally in the tank. They were committed to destroying Trump. Their questions were disgustingly one-sided. Their assumptions were totally false, and they literally couldn't deal with it. And an example that I find fascinating is that we have Vice President Biden on videotape, in his own words, speaking to the Council on Foreign Relations, saying proudly, I told the Ukrainians I had $1 billion in foreign aid. I was going to take it away from them unless they fired the prosecutor. The prosecutor, by the way, has since said he was investigating the company that Hunter Biden was employed by, which was paying Hunter Biden $600,000 a year. And I look at that and I think,
doesn't it sound like a shakedown to you? Doesn't it sound like he's
Of course it was. Look, the truth is he did everything that the Democrats claim they're worried about Trump doing, and Trump did none of the things that they say they're worried about Trump doing. That's what makes it, and that's when I realized that we're in a situation where the fix is in. The pro-coup group include the New York Times, the Washington Post, ABC, NBC, CBS, and the Democrats in the House, and elements of the senior bureaucracy. I mean, the parallelism between the way the deep state and intelligence is trying to destroy Trump and the way the FBI tried to destroy Trump a year ago, the parallels are just unbelievable. And you couldn't make
the parallels, everything boomerang back. There was Russian interference in 2016. And you know what? It was likely Russian disinformation from the get-go, as the New York Times said, with Hillary's dirty dossier. They didn't care about that Russian interference. It's only if they can bludgeon Trump. They don't, there's no I believers for the lieutenant governor and credible charges made against him, a rape and violent sexual assault. None of them. No I believers. Only if you can bludgeon Trump. They don't care about foreign election interference unless they can bludgeon Trump. Ukraine is offering us the evidence that they helped Hillary. Nobody wants that information.
Right. I mean, one of the things that the Republicans should demand in Congress is that they bring over the prosecutor in Ukraine who has said, yes, I was investigating the company that was paying Hunter Biden $600,000 a year. And yes, that's why I got fired. Well, let's have him come over and let's see the Democrats in the Congress cope with the Ukrainian who's prepared to sit up there and say to them, everything you've just said is false. It's not true. It's not what happened.
Yep. I had the great honor of having a front row seat that night and was emceeing the event at the Cobb Galleria in Georgia the night that Newt became speaker. And really, we've been friends for a long time and close friends. And, there's very little I think we disagree on over the years. And you've been a mentor of mine and somebody that has always gone out of his way to help me any way you could. And I appreciate it. But I will say, I think it is time for another contract. I think it's time to nationalize these elections in 2020.
Yep.
Thoughts?
I think that's right. And I think that starts, with the State of the Union. I think the president should outline a big visionary set of proposals that will truly move America into the 21st century. I think that'd be a brilliant thing for him to do, to draw such a sharp contrast with the left-wing cuckoos who are running for the Democratic nomination. And I think that the country's ready for a very positive, optimistic vision and a program that would get us there. So I agree with you entirely. And I think it's a very, very big concept.
Yeah. So if you're the president, how would you handle this today? Because I just think the president ought to just say, I thought everybody in the country cared about election interference. I was asking them to get to the bottom of their election interference. Everybody, all of these things matter.
What I would do is I would back out of the entire current news media conversation. somewhere in the near recent past, they changed the rule deliberately, I believe, to set up what we're now living through. And I want to know who initiated that, who approved it, what was their reasoning. I think we should go on offense and say, look, this entire thing is a trap. Everything from the New York Times and NBC News and the others and their totally false coverage to the deep states, false leaks and false reporting to the Democrats in Congress. This is not something you want to fight one step at a time. You want to lay it out for the country and say, look, these people now for 3 solid years have put destroying America and destroying Trump ahead of doing anything positive. And if you think that's a good basis for a political party, then you've got a bunch of folks out there you ought to vote for. But that's
all right,
literally
Mr.
what
Speaker.
they're doing.
Go to foxnation.com. It's going to be on the Fox News channel as well. The 25th anniversary of the contract with America changed history. And yeah, they actually balanced the budget and got things done. And it was rough and tumbled. Nothing like today. And it's gotten worse. Mr. Speaker, thank you. You changed history.
Great.
One of the
Always good to be with you. Well, you were part of it.
One of the most pivotal moments in the advancement of conservatism in the history of this country in modern day. Great job, and we should learn from it again. All right, when we come back, Congressman Jim Jordan and your calls and much more straight ahead.
I'm Robert Evans, host of Behind the Bastards, and like all of you, I'm dreading the 2020 election because it's going to be the worst year ever, which is why I decided to start a podcast with my friends Cody Johnston and Katie Stoll of Some More News to try and make this whole nightmare more bearable. We're all going to travel together to conventions like CPAC, and we're going to meet with weird subcultures like flat earthers and God knows who else, and see how this terrible year affects everybody. Are you guys excited to probably die together delving into this nightmare?
I don't know about excited, but
I'm thrilled. We're going to dance in the fire.
I'm ready
Yay!
for it.
So dance in the fire with us and listen to The Worst Year Ever. We're like a security blanket for your emotions, but also not, because we will not make you feel more secure, but less lonely. The Worst Year Ever!
Ever!
Listen to Worst Year Ever on Apple Podcasts, the iHeartRadio app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
60 Minutes has obtained a letter that indicates the government whistleblower who set off the impeachment inquiry of President Trump is under federal protection because he or she fears for their safety. When Mr. Trump visited America's UN staff, it appeared he threatened whoever revealed the call.
I want to know who's the person that gave the whistleblower, who's the person that gave the whistleblower the information? Because that's close to a spy. You know what we used to do in the old days when we were smart, right? With spies and treason, right? We used to handle it a little differently than we do now.
The president's remarks prompted the whistleblower's lawyers this weekend to send a letter to the acting director of national intelligence. They thanked the director for activating appropriate resources to ensure their client's safety. They write that certain individuals are offering a $50,000 bounty for their client's identity.
All right, that from last night. Look, they're so corrupt over at 60 Minutes. I mean, it is so frankly despicable. Whistleblowers under federal protection because he fears for his safety. Okay, well, it's not a whistleblower. Number one, it is hearsay. Number two, and the fact that we have the transcript, it means we don't really need the interpretation of a so-called whistleblower. It's ridiculous. That's the whistleblower's hearsay interpretation based on what other people told me. So important. No, because we've got the transcript. And when you go through the transcript, well, it sounds to me like the president was doing everything the corrupt mob media said they wanted done. They wanted to end foreign election interference. And yes, I'll go back January 11, 2017, Politico. What was in that article? Oh, the admission, yes, by Ukrainian officials with evidence that they want to give us that they were actively involved in undermining the 2016 elections and tipping the balance towards Hillary. as I've gone through in chapter, verse, and detail. But I guess it only matters just like, Russian propaganda, a paid-for dossier, doesn't matter in terms of as long as it's Hillary Clinton. But phony Russian charges of collusion that were debunked 4 times, but that matters. Just like obstruction doesn't matter, because otherwise the same people in the mob and the Democratic Party would be saying, yeah, Hillary needs to be charged with obstruction based on the way she treated the subpoenaed emails. Joining us now, the one and only Jim Jordan, a Freedom Caucus member, former president up until a couple of weeks ago. There was a coup inside the Freedom Caucus, and Andy Biggs, our friend from Arizona, took over. I am watching this, and I'm finding it chilling because I'm watching this country. First, I read this, and it's like, the president is faithfully executing the laws of the United States. The president's trying to get to the bottom of that which we now have been engaged in for 3 years. We now know that the Ukraine government they openly admit that they interfered in our 2016 election. He's asking the new president to get to the bottom of it. And while this is happening, impeach, simultaneously, we've got a videotape, the vice president of the United States bragging about a shakedown with taxpayer dollars for the personal gain of his family. Why would any vice president of the United States ever want a Ukrainian prosecutor fired, or I'm not giving you the $1 billion? You got 6 hours. It's like a mob movie to me. Your thoughts?
Yeah. No, Sean, you're exactly right. You had the Clinton campaign hire a law firm who hired a foreigner who talked to Russians, who put together a fake dossier that was used to spy on the Trump campaign. But somehow it was Donald Trump who colluded with Russia to impact the election. And now you have evidence. And that article you cite, Sean, is so good. I was just rereading it today as well. That article from January 11, 2017, Ukrainian efforts to sabotage Trump backfire. They were involved in this too. And so on that phone call, remember the sequence of the phone call. This is the other thing the Democrats always do. They always take everything out of context. The sequence of that phone call is, congratulations. The president of Ukraine says, we're going to drain the swamp here like you're doing there, Mr. President. He says, great. I want you to look into what happened in the 2016 election, how there was Ukrainian efforts to influence our election, and the Russia and the Mueller. Remember, this is the day after Bob Mueller had testified. And then, and only then, the President Zelensky brings up Giuliani, and he says, in addition to that investigation, referencing the Russia investigation in 2016, he says all other investigations are going to be done openly and candidly. And then and only then does the president sort of in passing say, oh, by the way, I heard about this Biden thing. You might want to check that out too. That is the sequence. And when any American who's objective and has common sense reads through that transcript, they reach the exact same conclusion that you and I reach, which is this is ridiculous what the Democrats are doing.
What do you think at the heart of this? Now, Lindsey Graham, I think rightly, wants an investigation into Biden, a special prosecutor appointed. I'm listening to Biden say over and over, no real journalistic outfit would ever consider this a story. I'm like, okay, did your son have experience in Ukraine that justified Burisma Holding, a gas and energy company, from paying you millions of dollars, or the Bank of China paying you and your friends $1.5 billion? Now, they could have gone to Goldman Sachs, but they decided to go to Whitey Bulger's nephew and Joe Biden's son's firm for the $1.5 billion. But they did with no experience there either. Are you kidding me? And the media just dismisses it like it's nothing. I've never seen such pathological hatred and lying in my life.
No, I mean, just the facts on their face, So he gets hired. $50,000 a month. I mean, I've said this. I said this yesterday on the show. There are folks that I get the privilege of representing in the 4th District of Ohio who don't make that in a year. He was getting that much a month, and as you point out, for a company in an industry he had zero experience in. And then there's this connection with the prosecutor in Biden and all. I don't know what all that was motivating that, but just the facts on themselves cry out for, hey, something doesn't smell right here. And you're right, the press is unwillingness to even examine this seems kind of strange to me, but it just shows you where the Democrats are, where the mainstream press is. If this is one more ridiculous effort, we always got to remember the sequence here. Remember, the Michael Cohen hearing didn't work for him. The John Dean hearing didn't work for them. The Bob Mueller special counsel investigation didn't work for him. The Bob Mueller hearing certainly didn't work for him. The Corey Lewandowski hearing didn't work for him. So I know what. Let's say this call transcript shows that the president was somehow working with Ukraine, when anyone who reads it says That's not there at all, but they're bound and determined to go after this president. It is sad for our country. It really is. What the Democrats have put our country through over the last 3 years, going back to July 31st, 2016, when they opened an investigation and spied on 2 American citizens associated with that campaign. And what they've continued to do just shows that they are never going to stop, and it's not about the facts.
You know, I don't know really what to make of where this all ends up, but I'll tell you this. Now they want every conversation of Trump. Can you think of in your long, illustrious career of every other president revealing the contents of phone conversations with world leaders, like the Australian Prime Minister, the president of Mexico, the president of Ukraine? Because I can't recall a time, and even worse than that, the idea that yet another backstabbing leak. Now, I don't find one thing inappropriate about the president wanting to get to the bottom of Ukrainian election interference. The fact that the president, he saw the tape like everybody else. And I think he was thinking, why did Joe Biden demand leverage tax dollars and demand that a prosecutor in Ukraine get fired? Why would a vice president ever do that, Jim Jordan? Because I can't come up with a good reason except, the kid was getting a lot of money. And it sounds like the very thing that Nancy Pelosi said about Trump, that, Joe Biden was using our tax dollars, $1 billion of them, to shake down Ukraine, to fire the prosecutor investigating his son, who's making millions on the deal with no experience. That would be personal gain for him and his family.
Yeah. No, look, the double standard. Everyone in your audience sees it. People across this great country with common sense see it. And that they see so many things. Think about this one, Sean. The Democrats bring up this more classified server that the White House put the transcript on. Do you realize there was a Senate study done in 2017? And here's what the Senate study said. It is the fact that the Trump administration has been besieged by leaks, just what you were talking about, at a level that far exceeds that of previous presidencies within just the first 130 days of the administration. So the real question we should be asking is, why are they putting every single transcript, every single communication on that secure server? Because of all the leaks of the people around in the bureaucracy who are out to get this president. This is scary what is happening. And for this president to have had the amazing 3 years he's had, in spite of everyone being against him, the mainstream press, the Democrats, the folks within the bureaucratic state, all throughout the federal government, it is truly phenomenal what he has had to fight against and still accomplish the things that he's been able to accomplish. And I think in the end, I really do. I really think in the end, the American people are going to be disgusted by this, and they're going to remember the positive things that have happened under the leadership of President Trump.
At the end of the day, it's, look at what Democrats are now fighting for. They're fighting for to eliminate oil and gas and the combustion engine. And if they get power, every presidential candidate has a version of this madness. And everything is free. And, jobs are guaranteed. Healthy food is guaranteed. Vacations are guaranteed. Health care is guaranteed, but you can't get your own. You won't have that option. Retirement is guaranteed. $94 trillion for that. $36 trillion for Medicare for all. And then, of course, they want to alter everything constitutionally. Let's get rid of the Electoral College. Let's stack the U.S. Supreme Courts. Let's use the weaponry of impeachment because, as Congressman Al Green said, we better impeach him because I don't think we're going to be able to beat him.
This is all about what they want to take away from American people. They want to take away your health care. They want to take away your drinking straws. They want to take away your electoral college. They want to take away your firearms. They want to take away your Supreme Court justice and Justice Kavanaugh. They want to take away your president. That is what this is about. Everything the Democrats want to take away from the hardworking people of this great country. That is what the next 13 months are going to be about. That what Democrats in the end want to take away from you, because they don't trust regular Americans. They're all about the elite, the folks who live in New York, the folks who live in Washington, D.C., all these people who think they're so much smarter, so much better than us, regular common folks who out there actually believe in the Constitution, believe in the Electoral College, believe in the Second Amendment, believe in this president, that is what this election is going to be about over the next 13 months. Mark my words. They're going to try to hide it. but it's all about what they want to take away from the American people. And they're starting with the guy we elected president.
They want him out of office, period. Any which way they can, and they're manufacturing it. They've telegraphed it from the get-go. More with Jim Jordan, Freedom Caucus member, former president, just recently stepped down after his term, and he joined. Thank God for the Freedom Caucus. We're lost without these guys. I don't know who else is going to fight these fights in Congress. Too many other Republicans are weak and pathetic and spineless and lacking any vision at all about the direction of the country. Quick break, right back. More with Jim Jordan, and we'll have the legal aspect of this coming up with Greg Jarrett and Sean Davis, who's writing great pieces on The Federalist. He's the co-founder of The Federalist. Straight ahead. All right, as we continue, Jim Jordan of Ohio, Congressman. Well, you just, what is there like? You, I don't know. You term limited out as president of the Freedom Caucus or what?
No, I served 2 years, and of course, my best friend in Congress, Mark Meadows, has been our chairman. He's done an outstanding job, and he did 2.5, and now we just sort of have this idea. We think it's good to bring in someone new, and Andy Biggs is going to be an outstanding chairman and continue that tradition that Mark has had over the last couple of years.
All right, let's talk about going forward. Where do you see this going? Do you think they're going to impeach? My attitude is, sure, call the roll. Nancy Pelosi. Speaker in name only. I want everybody on record, and they want to expedite this. Okay, go fast track it. Fine, move it along, and let all those congressmen that are in Trump districts that are on Democrats. Good luck to them.
Yeah, no, I think they are. I think when she did the press conference and announced that they were moving forward with this strange inquiry, but this impeachment inquiry, when she announced that just indicated they were doing it. Because remember, she announced it before the transcript was even out there. So that sort of indicates this is not about facts. This is not about truth. This is about going after the president. Sean, understand, we had a bureaucrat who doesn't like the president. Remember, indicia of arguable political bias. That is Washington speak for this so-called whistleblower doesn't like the president. A bureaucrat who doesn't like the president files a complaint. He wasn't on the call. He files a complaint about this phone call. He wasn't on the call, so some other bureaucrat told him about the call. So then the White House does something that's never been done. They released the transcript. We all get to read the transcript. We said, that's it? That's what you're doing? You're going to impeach on that? And Nancy Pelosi and Democrats says, yes, this is what we're going to do. We're going to impeach on this transcript of this phone call. And it just shows they don't care about the facts, because the day before she announced they were moving ahead before she'd even seen the transcript. So I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to have the votes. But again, the vote that counts is the one that will be in next November when the American people reelect Donald Trump. And I think there's a chance now that we can actually win back the House of Representatives as well.
I agree with that analysis, too. I think politically it's not going to work out the way Democrats think. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Jim Jordan.
You bet. Thank you,
Freedom Caucus. When we come back, Sean Davis of The Federalist, he's the co-founder. Greg Jarrett will join us. And your calls, 800-941-SEAN, if you want to be a part of the program. All of this we will break down tonight. We'll do the mob's job completely because they're gone.
Stay right here for our final news roundup and information overload.
I think we have to stay focused, as far as the public is concerned, on the fact that the President of the United States used taxpayer dollars to shake down the leader of another country for his own political gain.
Is there a gossip element to this sort of thing, or is it just trouble you?
Look, it's when you step back from it, this is not about me and my family. There's not one single solitary legitimate journalist in the world who's given any credibility to this. They've debunked all of what he's had to say for the past, since Giuliani started this a while ago. Look, there is much more at stake than whether or not he's acting so bizarrely. This is the idea that someone would call a head of a foreign state ahead of time, withhold significant military aid that's badly needed in order to prevent the Russian separatists who are in Ukraine from taking over Ukraine, and then ask basically can you cooperate with Rudy Giuliani? He's coming over, and the thing we all learned recently is that statement that the 2,000-word statement released was that talked about getting the Justice Department engaged in this. I mean, it's such a blatant abuse of power that it just I don't think it can stand. I said, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a got fired.
Well, son of a bee, the prosecutor got fired. It's fascinating to listen. By the way, news roundup, information overload. Glad you are with us. 800-941-SEAN. You want to be a part of the program. I know many of you very patient. Will get the calls. Pelosi say tax dollars shakedown for personal gain, and this has all been debunked by every credible news agency. Why would a vice president of the United States of America say fire this prosecutor in 6 hours and threaten $1 billion? You're not getting the aid. You're not getting the $1 billion. So Biden is using the $1 billion tax dollars to shake down the Ukrainians in forcing them to fire a prosecutor that is looking into the very company that is giving his own son millions of dollars. Yeah, that would be taxpayer dollars used to shake down for personal gain. And nothing has been debunked here in any way, shape, manner, or form. Nothing. Now, there are at the crux of all of this, we go back to where we began earlier today, which is it's a very simple. What is the president's constitutional duties? Well, the president of the United States, he has a lot of constitutional duties, and one of them is to faithfully execute the laws of the United States of America. We now have spent 3 years almost on this Russia witch hunt, Russian interference. How many times have I said this is selective, feigned, moral outrage? Because we had real Russian interference, what was a dossier paid for by the candidate that had a rigged investigation that would have put the rest of us in jail. And at the heart, they didn't care about Clinton's dirty dossier, or as the New York Times says, was likely Russian disinformation from the beginning. They didn't care about Christopher Steele. They didn't care about using it to spy on the Trump campaign, transition, and then presidency. Now we've got a deep state operatives yet again. Same tune, same old cast of characters. Except now there's no way in hell they're ever going to waste 3 years and put a special counsel in place only to be disappointed again. No, we're just going to impeach him first. You got to pass it to find out what's in. What did the president do? We have an agreement. We have a treaty with Ukraine. Did you know that there's as far as cooperation? The president, when he says, I need you to do a favor, this whole election mess, he's talking about the election mess. Joe Biden's tape of him bragging about literally holding out $1 billion tax dollars hostage to fire a Ukrainian prosecutor. When do vice presidents ever do this or act this way? Sean Davis with us. He's been writing some amazing columns, co-founder of The Federalist, and he's here to talk about, the change in the whistleblower laws, deep state operatives that are involved in all of this. Thank you for being with us. Greg Jarrett also with us. His new book is coming out in a week, Witch Hunt, the story of the greatest mass delusion in American political history. By the way, this might even top that, Greg.
One witch hunt after another. I wrote a column on FoxNews.com, and I go through all of the witch hunts that have been undertaken that are unquestionable evidence of impeachable offenses, from emoluments to Comey's firing to the Trump-Russia collusion hoax to the General Michael Flynn conversation, obstruction of justice, Stormy Daniels, white nationalism, Michael Cohen's testimony. All of this were allegedly impeachable offenses, and they weren't, and they still aren't.
Let me go to Sean Davis. Now, people are refuting that there was ever a change in terms of whistleblowers. In other words, to add if it's secondhand information or hearsay, that's okay. In August of 2016, you don't believe it was by accident. And in other words, eliminating the requirement for firsthand information to be involved in whistleblower complaints. You add to that we now know was apparently a CIA guy a plant, a deep state operative inside the White House of Donald Trump. Your thoughts?
Well, so I'm going to read to you here the exact language from the whistleblower form that the ICIG put out as of last May. And in bold, all caps, underline writing, it says firsthand information required. In order to find an urgent concern credible, the ICIG must be in possession of reliable firsthand information. Similarly, speculation about the existence of wrongdoing does not provide sufficient legal basis to meet the statutory requirements of the Whistleblower Act. So people who say that firsthand information was never required, they're being deliberately honest. And people who claim that requirement was not secretly gutted are being deliberately dishonest, because revisions were made to that form to eliminate that requirement as recently as August.
Well, they're claiming that whistleblowers secondhand, you can be a whistleblower even if it was hearsay in secondhand, but they just didn't have the box, and then they just added the box, and this was more of a box issue than what reality in the law stated.
No, that's simply untrue. The guidance provided by the Inspector General of the Intel community specifically said, as of last year, your complaint is statutorily deficient if it does not include personal, direct, firsthand information. And so what I think everyone ought to know is who changed that, who eliminated that requirement under the cloak of night, when precisely did they do it, and why did they do it? And it's interesting, when I asked the ICIG to answer those questions, they said, you know what, we're not answering any questions about this whistleblower, which was an odd response because I never asked about the whistleblower. I specifically asked about changes to the guidance, and they refused to answer it.
Why would they refuse to answer that? And you explained that on Fox and Friends, and that was a weird answer to me. Greg Jarrett, you're the legal expert. Your take, was this done by design? Is this evidence perhaps of yet another deep state attempt to take out a duly elected president?
I think our common sense and logic tells us that this was no coincidence. Just days before the whistleblower, who's not really a whistleblower under the law, files his complaint, they changed the form to say you don't have to have firsthand knowledge. You can have second and third hand multiple hearsay. That's no coincidence. Come on, we know what's going on. Somebody changed it so that this whistleblower is still unidentified, could file his complaint to try to damage Trump, to undo his presidency in a drive to yet again try to impeach President Trump.
You know, Bill Maher occasionally gets something right, and he's dead on. I mean, if Don Jr. did what Hunter Biden did, it would be a media frenzy to impeach Trump about the actions of his son. So all of this is rooted in politics. Now, for Joe Biden to cavalierly go out there, now Lindsey Graham is calling for a special counsel prosecutor. It'll be interesting to see if that happens, to look into the actions of Joe Biden and his family and whether or not this was about enrichment. Why, Sean Davis, can you give me any reason, any imaginable reason why a vice president of the United States would say, you've got 6 hours, fire this prosecutor, or I'm not giving you the aid that we had previously promised and appropriated to you?
Right. It was an incredibly odd exchange that Biden was apparently so thrilled about that he thought he needed to brag about it. I think even more concerning, though, is that in his phone call, Trump said to the Ukrainian president, I need your help with this investigation into foreign election meddling. And Ukraine, under that mutual legal assistance treaty, is required to offer it. So it's extremely suspicious that right as Durham and Horowitz, the IG, and Barr and Trump were getting to the bottom of actual election interference in 2016, which was suborned by the DNC, that's when they decided to go to war against Trump yet again. He may be the first president in history who will be impeached for the crime of trying to get to the bottom of foreign election interference.
Well, that was the original point I made on the air earlier today, which is that the president has a sworn constitutional duty to uphold the laws of this land. And everybody that was so upset, that was citing one law after another, if Donald Trump had colluded with the Russians, outside interference, campaign finance laws, they were looking for any way that they could nail this guy. And all of a sudden, I go back, if you look at January 11th, 2017, the Politico piece, the Ukrainians admitting that they actively sought to help the Hillary campaign and undermine Donald Trump. Now, if the president is going to get to the bottom of the issue that so many said they cared about, but they really don't, I would think everyone would be happy that he's asking Ukraine to do the right thing.
I wrote about the treaty. I talked about it for the first time on your program last week. It's called the Treaty on Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters. It obligates Ukraine to provide, upon request by the United States, the president, cooperation and assistance in connection with an investigation. This is an official investigation that was launched by the Attorney General William Barr. It's headed up by John Durham. Ukraine is obligated to comply with the treaty. So what do we have? We have the President of the United States trying to be nice on the phone and asking politely in a friendly manner Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, to please help with this investigation. As for Joe Biden's boast of a quid pro quo, my goodness, that is compelling evidence that he may have used his public office to confer a benefit of $1 billion in exchange for something of value, shutting down.
How about protecting his son
to help
from
his son?
Exactly. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back. Greg Jarrett, Sean Davis. All right, as we continue with Sean Davis, co-founder of The Federalist, Greg Jarrett. Next week, his sequel to his #1 bestseller is coming out. It's called Witch Hunt, the story of the greatest mass delusion in American political history. Hannity.com, Amazon.com, and in a week, bookstores everywhere. All right, so now the question is, you have this fever pitch to impeach. This is doing great harm to this country. There's nothing the president did wrong here. And now they want every conversation with every foreign leader. I can't recall, and maybe one or both of you can recall an incident where, let's see, the Australian prime minister talking to a president, the Mexico president, and now the Ukrainian president. All of these conversations are now being listened to and leaked and a president spied on, which is another aspect of this that I think is kind of important. Can you, Sean, think of any incident where a president has had to go through this? And if we're going to look at conversations with world leaders, I'd like to look at Obama's 8 years and Biden's 8 years. And I'd like to look at maybe Bill Clinton's 8 years in office. I have a lot of reading I'd like to do.
Right. You know, we've heard a lot from the left and the resistance about how Trump is destroying norms. He's destroying institutions in this country. But when you look at their actions, both the left and their media allies, you can tell that they are the ones looking to actively destroy our institutions. They hate the Electoral College. They want to destroy it. They refuse to recognize the legitimacy of our elections last November. They constantly leak classified information, even if it damages our national security, in order to get Trump. And this ongoing temper tantrum from people who are absolutely incapable of accepting the reality of what happened in 2016, that is so much more dangerous to the fabric of our republic than anything they have even come close to accusing Trump of. You simply can't have an operating functional order when you have half the country who, at the first sign of losing an election, decides to overturn the tables and declare all rule of law dead.
Last word. You have about 20 seconds, Greg Jarrett.
Well, I agree. They've weaponized our justice system. They have abused the political process. And their goal is to remove Trump from office, drive him from the White House. Ukraine is just another incantation.
Well said, both of you. Thank you both. Sean Davis, Federalist, Greg Jarrett, new book next week, Witch Hunt, 800-941-SEAN, toll-free telephone number. We'll get to your calls, some of the other news of the day next as we continue.
Mr. President, do you now know who the whistleblower is, sir?
Well, we're trying to find out about a whistleblower. When you have a whistleblower that reports things that were incorrect, as you know, and you probably now have figured it out, the statement I made to the president of Ukraine, a good man, a nice man, was perfect. It was perfect. But the whistleblower reported a totally different statement, like the statement it was not even made. I guess statement you could say with call. I made a call. The call was perfect. When the whistleblower reported it, he made it sound terrible. And then you had Adam Schiff, who, even worse, made up my words, which I think is just a horrible, I've never even seen a thing like that. Adam Schiff, representative, congressman, made up what I said. He actually took words and made it up. The reason is when he saw my call to the president, of Ukraine, it was so good that he couldn't quote from it because there was nothing done wrong. It was perfect. So Adam Schiff decided, I can't let this happen. So let me make up. Do you ever hear of this one, Gene? Do you ever hear of anything like this? So Adam Schiff made up a phony call, and he read it to Congress, and he read it to the people of the United States. And it's a disgrace. This whole thing is a disgrace. There's been tremendous corruption, and we're seeking it. It's called Drain the Swamp. There's been corruption on the other side. There's been corruption like you've never seen. Now, the new president of Ukraine ran on the basis of no corruption. That's how he got elected. And I believe that he really means it. But there was a lot of corruption having to do with the 2016 election against us. And we want to get to the bottom of it, and it's very important that we do. Thank you very much.
That is exactly what the call was about. All the people, election interference. Can't have election interference. We're having election interference. Well, the president, is saying, let's get to the bottom of it. And why on earth would somebody be bragging? You got 6 hours, man. I told them, you get 6 hours. You're not getting the money. You're not getting the $1 billion. 6 hours. Fire the prosecutor. Why would a vice president ever do that? It's never been this despicably repulsive and disgusting. I started the show today. All hands on deck moment for this country. You love this country. You believe in the rule of law. You believe in our Constitution. No president has ever had to go through this like Donald Trump. He has so shaken up the swamp, the corrupt, ugly sewer that is Washington, D.C. It is a sewer. And, press is driving this in a way it is so transparent. The unholy alliance that now exists with everything socialist, Democrat, and the press in this country. They are corrupt. They are liars. There is no such thing as journalism on any of these networks and any of these papers. This is a bigger witch hunt than the last witch hunt, but they're not going to leave anything to chance, like getting a special prosecutor to investigate it. Now, only to be disappointed much later. The only antidote to all of this is, and on top of it, by the way, if they get their way, good luck with your new Green Deal. Good luck to the greatest system ever designed to advance the condition of mankind, the standard of living of an entire world, our system of capitalism, because that they want that out the window. And that's who they are. And they want this power so bad. And they want to implement this agenda so bad that they will even overlook Hillary, rigging a primary against Bernie, and Hillary violating the Espionage Act. I mean, chapter, verse, and Hillary obstructing justice with subpoenaed emails that she deletes and everything else involved with that. And you want to talk about Russian interference? We had the dirty dossier. And then that even unverified becomes the basis of a FISA warrant 4 times to spy on a president. It first is campaign, then transition, then a president. And now the other question that nobody's asking is, okay, how did this get leaked? How come it has not happened in other people's presidencies? And if the Democrats really want to play this game, okay, let's release the conversations of presidents with foreign leaders. That doesn't provide an environment with a free, open exchange to maybe thread some needles and bring some peace. I'd love to hear the conversations with Biden on with Ukrainian officials. I'd love to hear the conversations with Obama and the Iranian mullahs. I'd love to hear what he said after he had more flexibility after the election of Vladimir Putin. But usually we wouldn't do that because then it makes the world less safe, less secure. And that's not good for this great republic of ours. All right, let's go to our busy telephones here. Dan is in Michigan. I'll tell you this, if this does not motivate you, if you don't get engaged here, if you don't see the importance of being engaged in this election, this moment in history, it is deep, it is transformative, it is profound. what will happen if this is allowed to stand, if they are rewarded for this and this behavior. It will. I really shudder to think about the country we're going to hand off to our kids and grandkids. The all important state, Michigan. Dan next. Hey, Dan, how are you?
Good, Sean. How you doing? Sean, by the way, you cannot retire until after the 2020 elections because we need you. Okay, so
I don't have plans, but there's a lot of deep state operatives that would love me off the air. And by the way, that is not, Linda, true or false? Is that statement truer than anybody would even imagine?
Oh, it's beyond true.
Beyond true.
You mean?
And one day I'm going to tell the story, but go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, hey, Sean, I just wanted to let you know, I was told a friend one time that I said, poor Linda. I said, Sean's always picking on her because of her accent. And my friend said, quote, well, I think her voice is sexy as hell.
Oh, my God. I love your friend.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. I just wanted
so you call the program and to flirt with the producer. What is up with this?
I encourage this behavior.
Oh, my gosh.
I thought you'd enjoy that, Sean.
I do indeed, Dan. Thank you.
It's very important to the, I'm giving this talk about, America's hanging in the balance by a
Well,
thread,
Sean, if there was more love in the world, like this gentleman wants to clearly share with me, then we'd be a happier nation. So thank you, Dan.
That went off. Hey, Sean.
Yes, sir.
The main point I want to make is that, for perspective, compared to the Mueller investigation, where they were using the Justice Department, it had power in the Justice Department, and they framed it with charges, and they could have framed him with indictment. That's history. That was their big gun. This is kind of a joke because he can just say, you guys are idiots. The Justice Department's not going to get involved. There's no legal jeopardy for him. And the impeachment thing is a joke because it's dead on arrival in the Senate. It's going nowhere. And maybe half the country needs to realize, hey, this impeachment stuff is going to make the Democrats look like idiots, and it's going to be dead on arrival. He's not going to be booted, and he's likely going to win in 2020. So we got a lot of positive compared to the Mueller thing when they were using the Justice Department.
I will tell you that all I want the Attorney General to do, all I want the Inspector General report to show is the truth. And if we get that out there, the case is overwhelming about abuse of power. And the irony is that everything they're accusing Trump of is everything they themselves are guilty of. In both cases, Russia collusion, Ukrainian collusion. And the media is so corrupt. This unholy alliance, Democrats and the mob. That's what we've got going on here. There's no truth. There is no objective truth anymore. There's no adherence to truth anymore. They just lie, and they lie with abandon. And then they'll make the flimsiest excuses for why a vice president is involved in firing a Ukrainian prosecutor in 6 hours, or I'm taking the money home. Wow, that's a conspiracy theory that has not been proven. No, Joe's bragging about it. Anyway,
one more thing, Sean. One more thing. Well, okay, to what you just said there, it would be nice, and again, they don't have any Justice Department behind them. It's a joke now. They're just putting the heck. But it would be nice if Attorney General Barr would announce a criminal investigation into Joe Biden. Why don't you help us out once in a while, Mr. Barr, and go after Biden, because they would be going after Trump and Don Jr. if it was them.
Yep, you're right. All right. And even Bill Maher said that. Amazing. And he's right. Ohio, another swing state. Jim, Sean Hannity Show. What's up, Jim? How are you? Glad you called, my friend.
I'm great. How are you? Two important questions that everybody seems to be dancing around here. They're related. The first is, are the Democrats suggesting that a presidential candidate gets automatic and complete immunity from an inquiry by the sitting president of a foreign leader, no matter what the presidential candidate has done, no matter what he's guilty of? Does he get complete and absolute immunity from any inquiry by the president on foreign soil? And the second related question is,
it's a great question.
Are the Democrats suggesting that not only is the quid pro quo irrelevant to this, but are they also suggesting that the Biden's guilt of what they've been accused of is absolutely, completely irrelevant to this inquiry? That's absurd.
the level of bias in just in this case, but we saw it with the Russia witch hunt, the same thing. I mean, Hillary paid for a Russian dossier, likely Russian disinformation from the get-go. Then it's used as a warrant to justify spying on the opposition candidate. I mean, all the things you just added together, the Hillary list. It is they don't care. I either they're just so blinded by this rage of theirs that they just don't see it, or they don't care and they're just that blatantly political and they're just hacks. I'm having a hard time believing they don't see it. I'm having a hard time. You know, you're so upset about election interference. Donald Trump's asking, hey, can you help us with this election interference thing? Because you guys were in the middle of it and you admitted to it.
Trump and the Republicans should call them on this. The way to handle this situation is to say you need to table this impeachment inquiry until the Biden underlying crimes
and not the president has nobody has any say except Nancy Pelosi, the squad, and the Democratic Party. And I'm all for an up or down vote. Let's get the vote on.
But
let's call the roll.
Make them say the words. Make them say the words. Biden's guilt doesn't matter. They have not made them say that at this point.
Listen, they're already saying, oh, there's nothing here. It's only a conspiracy theory. That's what they're saying. I mean, they're just denying simple, basic, fundamental truth. Anyway, I've got to run. Thanks for a really good call. By the way, I got to say happy birthday. JC Owen, his birthday was this weekend. How old are you this weekend?
No, his birthday's today.
Oh, Stanger's was this weekend. Yours is today. I know they're around the same time. What'd you do for your birthday, handsome?
I drank a lot on Friday, and then I relaxed on Saturday and Sunday, as is my wont. And I, of course, have to work Sundays to get the audio for this fine program.
Well, happy birthday. You didn't go to your favorite hangout.
I was there.
On your birthday?
Well, on Friday. Today's my birthday. I will not be going down there on a Monday night. It's a school night. Jesus.
Right.
But we gave cupcakes. We sang. We gave
sang?
cards.
I didn't sing.
You know, well, we don't include you on those things. You're a very busy man. You know, you're trying to save the country and stuff.
Well, I pay for the cupcakes. So, I mean, let's be real.
Actually, this time I paid for them.
Well, don't pay for them. That's my job. I take care of my team.
We go out for dinner in a couple weeks. I'll let you pay for it.
All right, that sounds fun. You want to go out for dinner?
Let's go out for dinner. Let's take everybody.
And you wish you only just paid for the cupcakes after you see that bill.
That's right.
That's
Ethan's birthday's next week.
You know, it's like 24 years. Stanger's been with me 24 years. Can you believe that?
No, because he's only 24. That's impossible.
Well, I both remember you two when you were younger. A long time
I remember
ago.
my hair was didn't have as much white in it. You can't say that I'm heavy anymore because I lost my weight, which is good.
You're
thanks
very
to the Jersey
skinny.
diet.
You're too skinny.
I'm not too skinny.
I'm way too skinny.
No,
let's put a poll on Hannity.com.
No, let's not put a poll on Hannity.com.
Yeah, because you know what the answer is going to be.
Hannity is the poll at this point.
That's right.
Quick
you are
break.
the poll.
All right, that's going to wrap things up for today. All right, a big Hannity tonight. Oh, Joe Biden wants Rudy Giuliani to be quiet and not have the right to go on television and talk. Yeah, we do have a First Amendment. We'll tell you the story that nobody else will. And the duplicity, the backstabbing, the double standard, the use of intelligence against the president, the spying on a president. And then, of course, the double that which they accuse the president of, they're guilty of. Jay Sekulow, Rudy Giuliani, Lindsey Graham, Karl Rove, Reince Priebus, Sarah Sanders, all coming up tonight at 9. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you tonight, back here tomorrow.
American way. Of course, the next best thing to a seat in the stands is the seat in front of a 19-inch RCA Victor television.
One more day to Labor Day weekend, the traditional occasion for tasty outdoor barbecues or picnics.
agree with all the obstacles and with all the enemies who are between me and...
This is Times Square.